years ago.
Okay.
And while most of the information there is still true, some of the Colossal champions are missing. For example, Aurelian Sol wasn't even released back then. So to fix that issue and prevent the spreading of more outdated information, I want to remake that video with what we know today. Just like in the original video, we will use Graves as our base human character, and we will compare everyone to him.
Also, where is Timo? Timo should be the half of the Graves, yeah. Because when it comes down to measuring units, I think Riot is using that shit as well. Yeah, Timo is basically a default measurement unit, not Graves, Timo.
Also, while we do these comparisons, keep in mind that we are only using canon lore as the source for all the sizes.
Okay.
Stuff like the old Until Dawn cinematic doesn't necessarily represent what Nautilus looks like.
Yeah, I imagine Nautilus was huge. In that cinematic, Nautilus was a fucking raid boss. But I imagine in the lore he's even bigger. He should be like a fucking Colossus now.
All skins will be ignored as well. And with all that said, let's get started. Just a quick note from my future self. Yesterday we tried the scaling on stream and we noticed something funny. The in-game models of certain champions have weird body proportions. This is what we got by scaling the models according to the splash art. For example, were we to scale Sion based on his jaw being a crown, his body would be ridiculously small because his jaw is massive.
Yeah, why he's so small? Why is Sion so small? We've got Gnar, you've got Gnar here, Jesus, Vel'Koz is kinda huge.
A lot of weird stuff like this happen.
Like, look at that, Jinx is taller than fucking Sion, like, what is this?
So for the purpose of this video, remember that we are scaling the champions based on their lore. The in-game models and splash arts will be ignored when possible. It still means that sometimes we just have to use them.
Whoa, why is Corky in here, bro? Remove Corky from his flying machine, yeah, and then put him on the ground, bro. He's going to be smaller than fucking Cogmine here.
But now, let's get going. I won't compare every single champion to Graves, since most of them are obvious. Darius, Vladimir, Victor, Rakan, all of them are roughly human-sized.
Roughly.
It is true that Twisted Fate would be slightly taller, and Ezreal would be slightly shorter, but it's nothing too interesting. However, there are some humanoid beings that do vary in their sizes.
Zed, for example, yeah, Zed is kinda Giga Chad. Braum is a Giga Chad, yeah, Braum, another example.
Let's start with Mundo, a child from a Zonite asylum.
Oh my god, old Dr. Mundo, eh? Bro, he looks so horrible, he looks so disgusting.
The story never explains why he is purple, or how someone could even survive giving birth to someone his size. But thankfully, we do have a point of reference for him. The meat cleaver he is holding is just described as massive, so it is still supposed to be carried by normal people. And this is quite surprising when applied to his actual model. The meat cleaver is so huge his actual body would have to be tiny. This is just an issue with his model being really old.
Lore accurate Mundo. I would love to see that shit. We have, in League of Legends, we have Elixir of Iron. Yeah, we have Elixir of Iron that makes you bigger. We have Frostfire Gauntlet, a mythic item that has a passive that with other legendary items in your build, you're becoming bigger and bigger. We need something like that, but for Uno Reverse, yeah, that makes you smaller. Imagine that. Imagine being very small. That'd be so dramatic. You're playing Timo, yeah, for example. Let's take a standard measurement unit called Timo, yeah. You build that item on Timo, and with other legendary items, he's becoming smaller, and smaller. Bro, it's so fucking amazing.
One of the last that came from beta, to be exact. So it's funny how the actual model isn't wrong. It's just the meat cleaver that doesn't do him justice. I still do understand why it is so big in game though, so he can land his Qs even when blindfolded. Next one on the list we have Mordekaiser. This is going to be an interesting one. Mordekaiser has very deep and interesting lore. We have an incredible amount of information about him, but his size is never mentioned. In the recent Pentakill video, Mordekaiser is pictured as a titan, but his story never mentioned him getting bigger. Mordekaiser started as a brood barbarian.
That's a Pentakill Mordekaiser skin. Yeah, I thought he said that we'll not be looking at the skins, you know? Because that is when we're looking at the lore, that's his old skin, yeah? That is a Pentakill Mordekaiser, which still has the human body, because right now Brazil, yeah, Mordekaiser is basically a spirit trapped in the armor. So the armor is big, so which makes him not He's not big, his armor is big. That's what I'm trying to say in here, no?
Kaiser started as a brute barbarian. He was massive, but he was still a human.
Well, yeah, he was
and
Giga
even
Shadow.
after he was resurrected, he was still wearing the same armor. So it's safe to say that his size didn't change even then.
They
So
crafted different
Mordekaiser
armor.
still has to be the size of a massive human. Nothing too colossal to be believable.
But also that's old Mordekaiser, yeah, that's an old Mordekaiser model, so there's a bit of that.
In fact, he would be the same size as our next two champions. The first one is Braum. Just like many of the other older Freljordians, Braum is also a massive man.
Fucking Chad.
You have to remember that his shield is the door to a large vault, so that gives us a solid point of reference. And right next to him we have Gragas. Gragas would also be massive. It's because in his keg he has a shard of true ice.
Ah shit, so that's actually true, he has a shard of true ice in there. Holy shit, I thought you guys were trolling in the chat when you were saying that he has a shard of true ice in his casket, so that makes his drinks always cold. Damn, brother, damn.
Using it as a never-ending melting source of water, but it's also unintentionally making him larger. The size of the other Iceborn to be exact. So just like Braum, Gragas would also be a massive guy. Next up we have Alistar. It is still unclear what Alistar really is, but just like
Minotaur. I don't know, bro. Your guess is as good as mine, but I think that's a Minotaur, yeah.
Like the previous champions, Alistar is also massive. My bets are on Alistar being a Vastaya, but that wouldn't tell us how big he really is. In this case, our only point of reference is his splash art. Specifically, this arm of a man turned into a paste.
Jesus.
If a human forearm is as long as...
I swear I never saw the fucking arm in there. There's no fucking way that's true. There's actually a goddamn arm in there. Look at that shit, there's an actual arm, what do you mean?
Alistar's hoofs are wide, then Alistar would be about this big.
Yep, makes sense.
Next up we have Hecarim. Hecarim is a strange one. In his story he is described as a massive abomination of a horse and a man. The problem is, if we scale his human half to
Not abomination, that's a centaur, my friend, that's a centaur.
graves, we realized that he would be tiny. So I decided to use the official Hecarim teaser as a scale. According to this picture, his hoofs are as big as a human helm.
Jesus.
Which would mean that he is even tinier.
Wait, what?
Maybe grave
His hoofs as a head? Oh, yeah, okay, makes sense. I know, for a second I thought it's gonna be a bit bigger.
his head is actually too big. The last option is to scale Hecarim to the size of a horse. And that's the only way how to give him a realistic scale according to the story.
Makes sense.
Then we have Ivern. Here we have to use the footage used for his teaser. From this footage it is obvious that a normal human is roughly as big as his upper torso, so his real size is somewhat reasonable. Next I quickly want to mention Jenna. She is a spirit, but in the story it is mentioned that she gains power from people believing and praying to her. And the story also suggests that
Basically, simp mom, yeah, basically the OG simp farmer, basically the first Uwu queen. Understandable, Riot.
her size also changes that way. However, in her color story, her current size was revealed, and she's just a tiny bit larger than a normal human. Then we have Jax, or as we know, Side Jax. In the Icathian story, it was revealed that he is a massive warrior, probably similar size to Braum. The funny thing is, were we to actually scale him to that size, you'll notice that his body starts to look surreal. That's because his body proportions are very cartoony. I also wanted to include Nunu on this list, but we literally have no reference point at all. So I'm sorry, but Willump is roughly maybe this big.
Also remember, yeah, Willump is a fake news, yeah, Willump is not real. Remember that, yeah, William is not real. Remember that, yeah, he's a fake. He's a hologram.
Then we have Nasus and Renekton. Here we know two things. In the Icathian story, it was said that they are towering creatures twice the size of a man, and in the Bloodline story we have many different descriptions. Such as, he was dressed from head to foot in tethered robes that did little to conceal his enormous bulk and height. So taking these into consideration, we can generate the size of both Nasus and Renekton. And if you're asking about Azir, according to his cinematic, he is just a tall guy. Next we have Nautilus.
There we go.
This one is quite problematic. You see, everywhere he is pictured as a titan, enormous creature as big as a building.
Yep.
And his story is quite outdated, and I don't know how much trust I would give it. The story says that the armor he wore was a massive diving suit. The black matter that corrupted him just fused his body to the suit. So if I had to go with the story alone, I'd say he isn't as huge as we might think.
The question is, who the fuck crafted that armor? That's the question, eh? Because we know Mordecai got his armor crafted by some sims that he corrupted. Because he promised them power, they promised them everything from the afterlife. That's why they crafted his armor. What about Nautilus armor, eh? That's the question.
Similar issue comes in with Sion. Sion is a massive warrior from Noxus. He was a large man, but no titan. I'd actually say he would be the same size as Mordekaiser, but Galio has a special quote against him. This heavily confuses me, as there is no reason for Sion to be as big as Galio. Even during his release, he was shown to be a reasonable size. So again, according to the story, this would be his real size.
Old Galio, mind you. Yeah, I think we're still talking about old Galio. Oh, how old is the video? Oh, bro, pretty old, yeah, pretty old. 4 years, brother. Yeah, so maybe we're still talking about old Galio. That was season 8? 9?
Then we have Ergot. With Ergot, it's relatively easy. All we have to do is to scale his still human arm, and we get something like this. Hextech augments usually don't make the rest of your body larger. Maybe in his case only a tiny bit, since it...
This is also kinda outdated, because right now we can follow the concept of the shit we saw in the Arcane, and Arcane is considered to be canon. So, and in canon we saw a skinny guy. Yeah, I think it was the first couple of episodes, and the first couple of episodes where my boy Silka was giving a potion to a skinny guy, he became a fucking giant, bro. He became a fucking Giga Chad. So I imagine your body scales with shimmer.
It runs on actual chemicals. Similar to him would be Warwick. His body would become larger because Singed pumped it up with chemicals that literally tore his muscles. And in combination with the actual transformation, we get something like this.
Following the idea that Warwick is Vander from Arcane, we saw that Vander, after drinking the shimmer, he became slightly bigger. Yeah, his muscles became bigger. Plus, consider the fact that Wander was already a big guy. Yeah, he had that dad bod. After drinking shimmer, he became even big. And in the story, Singed is doing a bit of experimentation on following the same idea. Yeah, we're still on the same idea that my boy Wander is the Warwick. So yeah, I imagine he's gonna be even bigger. Also, there was a cinematic. Yeah, there was a Warwick rework cinematic, so maybe we should check into that, you know?
On the other hand, we have Twitch. While many think that he is a rat, so he would be tiny,
yes,
he is still armed with a real crossbow. And his body is pretty big compared to it. So scaled up, Twitch would be considerably larger and more horrifying were we to meet him face to face.
If you want to meet him, just go to Paris. That's all I'm gonna say, yeah? If you want to meet big rats, go to fucking Paris, yeah? Oh, the city of love, the city of love. Nah, brother, it stinks, and there's a fuck ton of rats, and it's absolutely unclean in there. Anyway.
The last one from this humanoid section is Zack. We know how big Zack is because his story has a scene where he fights humans. Standing up, he would be hitting the ceiling, so he'd be much bigger as well. Then we have one non-human mechanical champion. For him we only have one reference point, and that is the newest Climb cinematic. Here I'm going to break my own rule and use this footage because this cinematic was actually made with the lore in mind. So according to this, Blitzcrank can easily fit adult man in his hands. So he would also be huge.
Also, I'm pretty sure the same sized model was used in the Wild Rift cinematic now. He looked pretty big in there as well.
Now let's have a look at the tiny guys. Amumu is described as a small withered child emperor. We know how big he is because of his color story. The thing is, even if we scale his body down to the accurate size, his head is still freakishly huge. So
bro, that shit would be scary to see in that jungle. Realistically, it would be very scary, bro. But we can achieve that. Yeah, now think about it, we can achieve that. You just build Frostfire, get Elixir of Iron, that's it. And that's it. You give people nightmares. That's what I used to do on Tank Teemo build. I would build Teemo, fully tank, Iceborne Gauntlet, Elixir of Iron. You stand in the middle of the lane, you become invisible, then people are showing up, and then you are leaving, you're exiting your fucking self. And out of nowhere, boom, giant Teemo. And they get a heart attack and then you kill them. Easy.
So I guess that's what we have to go with. Then we have all the Yordles we know about. Ziggs, Heimerdinger, Teemo, Tristana, Ganon, and so on. All the Yordles are pretty much the same size. And we know how big they are because we know how big they are compared to Jinx. So, if we scale Jinx to Graves, and then the Yordles to Jinx, we get something like this.
I'd say that's pretty accurate, even though the video is 4 years old. That's kind of accurate because we saw Heimerdinger and the Arcane, and I'd say Heimerdinger was pretty much the same size as Ziggs right now in this scenario.
Means that we get the accurate size for the inventions of Corky and Rumble. But we have one more tiny guy. With the new short...
Why? Hold on, give me a second. Why are we checking Corky in here, yeah? Like, brother, Corky is fucking flying, bro. Consider the fact that he can adjust his altitude, yeah? He can adjust his altitude with the flying machine, bro. He can go fucking higher, he can go fucking lower, you know?
And Rumble. But we have one more tiny guy. With the new short lore description of Shaco, we know that he's a marionette. So scaling him down gives us something funny like this. Now,
Lord accurate chick, I would love to see that shit. That's the idea I was talking about. Create an item that makes you smaller, and you'll play as a lore accurate chick. That would be fucking hilarious, bro.
That we have the simpler champions covered, let's have a look at the demigods and celestials. Obviously, the largest creature we know about is Aurelion Sol.
Yep.
Scaling him to the correct size, we get something like this. Not as drastic, is it? You see, Aurelion may be a creature that creates the stars, but in his story, he still had to fly over the lands of Runeterra.
Yeah, because they crafted the crown, yeah, so basically, yeah. Bro, the amount of resources required for that goddamn crown, eh?
Good reference is this picture, where we can see Aurelion hidden in the stars and Pantheon on the land.
Oh yeah, I remember, now I remember, because back in the day, when they were teasing Aurelion Sol, they said that you can see the champion in here. Does anyone see a champion in here? He's a big boy, yeah, he's a big boy. I remember it took me a while basically to find Waldo, but in this case find Aurelion Sol. I feel like this is his head in here, yeah? I feel like this is his head and this is his body. I feel like that's the angle, no? Or I'm wrong. I'm never wrong, yeah, I'm never wrong. Just accept it as this. Yeah, I see his head. Or maybe I'm going crazy and seeing things where there are no things.
Stars and Pantheon on the land.
I'm crazy, yeah.
Another known celestial is Bard. The thing is that Bard has his own cinematic, so we know that his size is pretty normal. Something like this actually. Then we have Anivia, Volibear and Ornn.
Yep.
All three of them are roughly the same in size. Ornn's story says that he leveled mountains, but we know that's just a tale. We know he is massive, but he's not a titan. Actually, his splash art hides a pretty good reference point. If you zoom in, you may notice this bird sitting on his horn. So if we scale his body to this bird, we get something like this.
Okay.
Volibear and Anivia
Makes
would be
sense.
similar. Here we have to mention the two Colossals we know nothing about, Cho'Gath and Malphite. So far we have no information on Cho'Gath actually eating worlds. We know he is a Voidborn, and we know he is big. If we go by his splash art, we get this size. Malphite is exactly the same. Although it is rumored that he might be an actual mountain, Malphite is still just a big guy according to his story. Here
Yeah, we saw the splash art from Legends of Runeterra as a card. Now, I think we saw splash art from there. He's literally a fucking mountain, brother.
we also have to go by his splash art, and we get something like this.
Yep.
Now
even
on to
bigger.
Galio. With Galio it's pretty easy.
That's not old Galio, bro. That's a reward Galio. Who said in the chat that's an old Galio? It's a new Galio.
His splash art is based on his story, so his real size would be something like this. Then there is Rexai. Her size can be estimated based on the shots in her own cinematic. The final size would look like this. Tamkench had also a lot revealed in his
Mommy Rexai. I think in the newest League of Legends cinematic, yeah, Rexai is pretty much the same size, no? Maybe a little bit smaller, maybe just a bit. But that's pretty accurate, even if she is diving after the Kaisa. That looks similar, yeah, looks kinda accurate.
The final size would look like this. Tamkench had also a lot revealed in his cinematic. His size would look like this. And the last champion we'll have to look at is Gnar. Gnar would be roughly as big as Ziggs in his normal form.
True.
But when I tried to measure his enraged size, I realized there is no way to do so. I wanted to estimate its size based on his splash art. Here you can see that his body is as big as one of his tracks. The problem is, this is not one of his tracks. His hind legs have only 3 fingers and his front legs, or arms, have thumbs. So this can't be him. Another note from my future self, actually there is a way to scale Meganar accurately. This was pointed out by Korn, one of our subscribers on Twitch. The skull on Nar's head remains the same, so we can actually put them next to each other and scale him to 6. Really awesome catch that I would have missed otherwise. But that's pretty much all the interesting size comparisons we can make.
Not bad.
If you find a good argument for or against one of our findings, feel free to let us know in the comments. But that's it for this video. So if you enjoyed it, feel free to like it and subscribe for some lore and news. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook and Discord if you'd like to chat.
And
we are also streaming fan games and other things on Twitch, so feel free to follow us there too. Our merch and PO box will be in the description. Of course, massive shout out to our patrons for going the extra mile, you guys are amazing. And with that, thank you all so much for being here and for your support, you know I really appreciate it. And as always, thank you, come again.
Video. Yeah, that was a good video. I would actually prefer seeing every single one of them ranked in the size. You know, like there are videos that are ranking planets. No, not planets, the stars, yeah. So basically at the end you begin with the sun, with the first star that we see. We know the size of the sun. And then you scale it up and up and up and up. Then you go to the very end. And you see the biggest star known in the known universe. You see that scale. And then next to it is the sun. So basically it's so small. I would love to see the same example for every single League of Legends champion.